Hello, welcome to Lessons of Vietnam. My name is Bill Dixon, along with my co-host, Mr. Bob Matthews. We're going to talk to you a little bit tonight, and we hope that you're going to help come in and help us out a little bit. Call us at 919-518-9773, or even better, go on to Computers 2K Voice on Skype. That's on Skype, Computers 2K. The letter 2 and K, voice. And if you don't want to use your real name, put in another name. Put down crap burner, whatever you want to put down. That's okay. But ask questions and make comments and so forth. This is your show as much as ours. Was trying to get the video of the symposium we did in the 1st of January. But the museum is a little slow in getting things done, so we don't have the tape we were hoping to show you tonight. So what we're going to do is kind of do little bits and pieces, a little bit of everything. That's the reason we want to have you to come in and make comments, and we're going to challenge you to a few questions and so forth. Bob's got his favorite movie star to talk about, and we want your opinion about the movie star. And Bob, I'm going to turn it over to you to get started, and then I'll just chime in for a little bit as you.
Thank you, Bill. Well, again, thank you, and welcome to the show tonight. We are coming out of a very, very busy month, and it never ceases to amaze me when we start to do more than the actual teaching of Vietnam in the classroom. When we get into the community and we start calling on the citizens of North Carolina, so many people have such valuable assets to contribute. As Bill mentioned, the Symposium downtown, where we recently talked about the early battles of Vietnam, and we talked about the Battle of the Hump and the Battle of the Ia Drang Valley in Vietnam. A lot of people went home that evening and queued up or bought the movie We Were Soldiers Once and Young, and watched it again, and they were at the Symposium, and they saw people that were at the battle. Now, you can't get much better than that. One was a Medal of Honor winner, Joe Marm. One was Joe Galloway, who was an award-winning war correspondent, and I happen to have a copy of his book with me.
And you know, Bob, he was the only civilian I know that actually got a Bronze Star with a V device. I don't even know the civilians could get a Bronze Star, but because of his activities and so forth, not just at Ia Drang Valley, but going out and sometimes having to carry a rifle as well as a camera, earned him that Bronze Star. So.
Well, Joe Galloway was a pleasure to meet, and I think, if you can use that expression, if someone stole the show, Joe Galloway was more than a correspondent. He was an entertainer.
Yes.
He was wonderful. And our third member came to our meeting last night.
Yes.
Cliff
Haskins.
Cliff Haskins. Very nice. So it was a real treat. And so we are moving toward our second symposium, February 16th. And Bill is working hard on this, getting ready to invite 3 more people who are priceless with their knowledge and their backgrounds for the audience. And we're hoping the first one will stir interest in the second one, and the second one will stir interest in what we call etchings in stone, which we'll talk about a little bit tonight. But Bill, could you give the audience a brief synopsis of what's coming the 16th, so they can make their plans?
The 16th is going to be unusual. We have there are 2 of the speakers, or all 3 of the speakers, are good friends of ours. 2 of them have been on the show before. Bill Schuette, Norman Gaddis. Both of those were American soldiers who were shot down. Bill Schuette was in the Navy. Commander in the Navy, was shot down. He and his pilot was actually the 12th and 13th prisoner to be shot down of the Vietnam War. He spent 7.5 years in prison. And then Norman Gaddis, Brigadier General Norman Gaddis, was in the Air Force, who spent quite a bit of time. He spent almost 3 years in solitary confinement.
Let me give a little segue there on Mr. Bill Schuette for a minute. As Bill Dixon mentioned, his pilot, Bill was a navigator. His pilot was the recently deceased Jeremiah Denton, who was a senator from Alabama, wrote a couple of books and was very well spoken. and they went down together, became fast friends, of course, with their families at home and so forth. But Bill Schuette has opened up his life to Wake County students and the young soldiers and airmen at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in Goldsboro. And he's become a conduit for someone that did something heroic and is teaching young guys how to take precautions and be ready in case something happens to them like happened to him. But more than that, he's had the willingness, him and his lovely wife, to not only come on our show here, but come into classrooms.
Well, you know, Bob, Bill Schuette's wife and Norman's wife, both of them were very instrumental because they were, both of them shot down early in the war. The two wives were very instrumental with the League of Families and helping other POW families and wives and families and so forth, and getting all the information to the loved ones that they could get, scrounge together, whatever. So not only were the husbands serving, but the wives were serving at the same time.
Well, Bill, we've talked before about this in the classrooms all over the country, and even at the course at NC State, the Encore course we taught together, that often when you talk about misfortunes in history, you only talk about the frontline people. We were soldiers once. Of course we were, all of us. But we also had families at home that went through everything we did. As I've mentioned this many times before, and I can't make this point strong enough, that when you're at war, whether it's in Vietnam, whether you're in the Middle East, wherever you're fighting, you are on the front line. Everything to you is up front right away. The loved one is in their imagination. I think they have it rougher because they waited. We even wrote a chapter in our book, Those Who Waited, how hard it was. We've interviewed wives, we've interviewed daughters, brothers and sisters of men and women that served this country overseas. They've had a rough time. They have as much PTSD as the soldiers do. And it's worth taking a moment tonight when we're kind of reliving things in bits and pieces. When you talk to someone that is working in lessons in Vietnam, you're also talking to their family. I often say Vietnam veterans and their families, we do this for you. And we always will.
A lot of Vietnam veterans were on their second, third, and fourth wives because when they came home, they were still in Vietnam. And the wives wanted the same person that left to be the one that come home. Bob and I have been very fortunate. I just celebrated my 50th anniversary. I was married 3 years when I went to Vietnam. Bob was married, and he's still married to the same woman. I don't know why she's put up with him this long, but she has.
She's left one.
And so she's a good lady.
Oh, yeah.
And we haven't talked about, but our third guest or panelist on the symposium, we've had a lot of books and so forth, Bob, out there. I've read a lot of them about POWs in Hanoi, Hilton, and so forth. And, of course, one of the ones we're going to talk about tonight, Nick Rowe and so forth. But we haven't had a whole lot of books, a lot of information about that other prisoner, those who are South Vietnamese military who were put in what the communists call re-education camps to get them thinking right.
Correct.
And we have one of our friends, and who's going to be one of the men on the symposium, on the panel. He was a major at the time of when Saigon fell. He is now a colonel with the United States Veteran Support Command, who is an organization that works with veterans and the Vietnamese community. He spent 7 or 8 years in re-education camp, basically slave labor, no medication, whatever. And his story, he understands communism about as much as anybody.
It's a very interesting point of view, as you mentioned before, is we're used to hearing about our guys. Mm-hmm. And when we say the word Vietnam, a lot of us say Vietnam, we say it different. When he says Vietnam, you know he's Vietnamese, although he's now an American citizen. Vietnam is his home country. As you mentioned, he spent 8 years in a re-education camp. He's come here. He's done a great deal of work for the Vietnamese community in North Carolina. He has helped us immeasurably in our trips back to Vietnam with fundraising, going back, as he says, to help his people. He told me once privately, you helped us years ago in Vietnam fighting communism, and you're still helping the people of Vietnam get a better life. We take pride in that. And we love this man. And when he comes to our symposium, you'll have Bill Schuette, you'll have Norman Gaddis, and you'll have Colonel Hein Vo. You're like walking into the Smithsonian Institute. These three gentlemen have more to say than any book you could ever read. So if you get a chance, make a note. February 16th at the Museum of History, downtown Raleigh.
Yeah.
2 hours of absolute joy.
When you walk in the door, the main entrance of the museum, the auditorium will be off to the right. There is limited seating, so don't wait too long. But I tell you, if you've got a teenager or whatever, and you want them to understand communism and fascism and so forth, bring them to this symposium, because they'll get a real education of what men can go through. To me, you realize that what these men went through, and not bitter. Well, the two Americans aren't bitter. The Colonel will not go back to Vietnam. You get him talking about communism, he starts foaming at the mouth a little bit, just about. But
well, Bill, a small analogy to what you just said may be in the very popular movie now, Unbroken.
Yeah.
See, these men went through hell, came back and become productive citizens, good family men, and have given back their community and their schools. As I mentioned many times before, probably the most recognizable symbol in North Carolina or in Wake County is the black and white POW flag or bumper sticker. It flies everywhere. It's on the back of Jeeps and trucks, and everywhere you go.
Flies at the state capitol.
It says Palmia, but it means POW-MIA, of course, prisoner of war missing in action. And these gentlemen coming in the 16th of February are the real deal. They are the POWs. They were missing in action. And now they're back to share their lives with you. And it is the prelude to something coming in March that may turn this town upside down. It's called Etching in Stone. We'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
But just to preview again, we had a lot of people come the first one. Can't wait for the second one. And we have broadcast this all over the state. This is what I call a must-see evening. So mark it on your calendar. 6 till 8, Museum of History. North Carolina Vietnam Veterans.
That's 5 Edenton Street. North Carolina History Museum is right across the street from State Capitol. Parking there. You can park in the state employees parking lot after 5. You need to be there. By the way, you also need to call in and ask us questions, make comments, make suggestions at 919-518-9773 or Computers 2K Voice on Skype. Now, let me do that one more time, because I might have some Marines out there. Computers 2K Voice. Okay, that's for the Marines. Okay, you got to tease them a little bit. I mean, they're just so easy. I mean,
You have to forgive me, Bill, but sometimes I will revert back to being a teacher. And what I always try to tell the students is, if I announce we're having a special class, special speaker, something like this, do your homework. Get some good questions ready so the speaker respects the audience. So if you're making plans on the 16th to come and talk to 3 POWs, do a little research and maybe think, well, what in the heck would I ask that guy? Because I was afraid when Bill Schuette told me he would speak in my classroom with 35 seniors. I was a little bit afraid of what they would ask him. It might embarrass him. He told me, Bob, I've been in a hole for 7.5 years. 35 high school kids aren't going to embarrass me. He answered every question. But now I'm talking to the audience. Get some good questions for these guys, because we have a floating microphone at the end of their talks, and we'd love you to ask some questions.
Bob, I know that I can do some research. It's easy. All you have to do is go to NCVVI. That's North Carolina Vietnam Veterans Incorporated.org, and watch the show that Bill Schuette did and the show that Norman Gaddis did. It's right there for your archives for you to do your research and sit down and figure out what questions that you need that were not answered on that show and ask those questions. and get them answered. I know that if you watch those 2 shows, or actually 3 shows, because Bill was on twice, you'll have questions that we didn't get around to answering. And that's a great place to do research.
It is. Well, let me reminisce a bit, Bill.
Okay, reminisce.
Thank you. Years ago, when I had the privilege to meet Bill Schutte the first time, I had been teaching a long time. And of course, I thought I knew everything, but I didn't know anything. And I got Bill Schutte for dinner over in Apex. And we sit down there, and we had a cold beverage, and we're sitting there talking. And he said, "Well, Bob Matthews, what do you want to ask me?" And I said, "I want to shake your hand first, and thank you for being an American hero." There was a 30-second pause. And he said, "I don't believe you said that." And I said, "Well, you're a hero to me." The waitress came by 25 times during dinner, filling our water glass. We never touched our meals. We talked for 3.5 hours. And he thanked me. Imagine this now. He thanked me for teaching the Vietnam story. And he was my guest. And I'm forever in his debt. Because I mentioned on this show before, Bill Schutte and his friends filled a hole in our course, Lessons of Vietnam, that none of us could fill. And he filled it well. So forever in his debt. And I want you to also have the privilege of meeting this man. And Norman Gaddis and Colonel Bell.
Both men are very special, very giving. They're easy to walk up and talk to. They'll talk to you, shake your hand, tell you about anything that you want to know about the POWs, how they were treated, the torture, or whatever you want to ask them. They'll talk to you about. They're easy to talk to, just like talking to an old friend. I mean, they're
Right. That's
both
good.
of them that way.
That's an excellent way to put it, like an old friend.
Listen,
Very
I
nice.
want you to go out while you're out there, since you're not calling us like you were asked to do. I want you to get a pencil and paper down, because I want you to make sure you get these dates down, because we got a couple things coming up. As we mentioned, the Symposium on February 16th, but let's make a whole weekend of it, because on February 15th is the 2015 Tet Celebration. Now, for those of you who don't know, Tet is the most important celebration in Vietnam or Vietnamese people. It's kind of like our Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, all rolled into one. If you're in Vietnam, there's not much work goes on the week before Tet, the week during Tet, and the week afterwards, because families come all over the world, go back to Vietnam. Well, there's about 17,000 Vietnamese who live right here in the Raleigh Triangle area, and they'll be holding a Tet special celebration on February 15th. It'll be at the Carscott Building at State Fairgrounds. If you've got young children, be there. It starts at 10:30, but if you've got young children, be there by 12, because they will have a dragon dance that is just outstanding, and the kids all just conglomerate right around the dragon. But those kids who put on the dragon dance are phenomenal.
They're great.
Acrobats and athletes and so forth. But that's coming up February 15th, and then go right the next day you go to the Symposium. But before that, for the last 27, working on 28 years now, we have met the first Saturday of every month at the State Capitol here in Raleigh at the Vietnam Memorial, the last fire base. And February 7th, we will be holding our monthly ceremony. And we have a very special guest doing the reading, calling out of the names this time. It's the North Carolina Vietnam Veterans Helicopter Pilots Association. This is their annual meeting, and they always come to Raleigh for that. So if you're a helicopter pilot or want to meet a helicopter pilot, come over to the ceremony at 12 o'clock noon, first Saturday of the month, which is February 7th, and meet some helicopter pilots and meet some other veterans, ask questions there. We honor the 41 from North Carolina who's still missing. And while we're on that, we have talked to you before about MayaQuest.
MayaQuest.
And we had MayaQuest, excuse me.
MayaQuest.
Yeah, what Bob said. My southern tongue just has
The
these things.
Mayaguez.
Okay, that's what it was.
There you go. There you
Well,
go.
coming up May 15th is the 40th anniversary of that of the capture of that ship, and we've had on the show a couple of times a man by the name of Gary Turner. Carrie, excuse me, Carrie's cousin Joseph N. Hargrove was one of the Marines that were left on the island. There were 3 Marines they forgot when they got back to the ship and did a head count. There were 3 Marines missing. Joseph Hargrove was one of those. Well, some of the men who were there with Joseph and Carrie are going back to Kongtang Island on the 40th anniversary. They're going to be there and again look for remains of Joseph Hargrove. That family has paid a lot of price. Joseph's brother was killed in Vietnam, and then right after the fall of Saigon, Joseph was left missing in Cambodia on Kongtang Island with the Mayaguez.
Mayaguez, right?
Mayaguez, okay. I'm going to learn how to say that word one of these days. But anyway, Mayaguez, okay.
Mayaguez.
Anyhow, what they said is the ship, and Carrie's going to be coming back there, and when he comes back, he's going to come on the show and tell you a little bit about what's going on there. But this is actually going back with some of the soldiers who were, or the Marines that were with Joseph there. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in, what's coming up.
This is a good story. It's a continuing story. As Bill mentioned, the Mayaguez was captured in the tail end of Gerald Ford's administration. So if you're making some notes tonight and looking things up to get your facts in a row, it's the Mayaguez ship that was captured there and the Marines left behind in Cambodia right toward the end of the Vietnam War, or when the ceasefire of the war came. And Kerry Turner is coming in for the Chapter 3. And he's one of the most persistent men, as you well know if you're a fan of the show or if you follow the Vietnam story at all. Joseph Hargrove, his book is called Bringing Joseph Home. And it's quite a story. It's quite a story.
That is good reading. You can get that at Amazon, or if you go on the Facebook to Joseph Hargrove, you can see a way there to go on and order the book. It's a good read. They have talked with the man who actually executed Hargrove. He told him where he buried him, how he shot him, and there's actually pictures of remains that match the wounds that Joseph Hargrove had, but JPAC says that they don't have him.
Well, the family for this incident want nothing more than to bury Joseph with dignity and honor, as we do, as Vietnam veterans and American citizens. And one thing we're going to remember, too, is this. When this is over, and it will be over, this has the makings of a TV movie. It's a great story, and it needs a good ending. So keep this in mind. The Mayaguez, Carrie Turner, yet to be told the entire story, but it's on its way.
Joseph N. Hargrove is one of the 41 whose names we've called out over the past 27 years. So.
And Carrie Turner often says he's Paul Harvey.
Yeah.
He's going to tell the rest of the story, and we're going to listen.
All right. While you got your pencil and paper handy, I got another date for you. Now, I'll write this down carefully. March 27th, 28th, and 29th. That is when we will be doing the Ron Harris drama, Etchings in Stone. The Friday night show will be at 7 o'clock, Friday night. Limited seats. I'll tell you how to get tickets in just a moment. The 28th, which will be on Saturday, that show will be on at 4 o'clock. And then on Sunday the 29th, which is National Vietnam Veterans Day, it will be on at 2 o'clock. Now on Saturday, we will have a static display of vehicles and so forth. But during the 27th, 28th, and 29th, we will have the small wall we have where you can come and get look at the wall. It's a 1/8 replica of the one in D.C. We'll have the computer with our printer to give you printouts. We'll have Vietnam era uniforms and Viet Cong uniforms and all kinds of stuff like that. We'll have the wall books there that you can pick up. It'll be a totally inclusive display there for you to come in and see all things Vietnam. Might even have a half a barrel there or something for people.
And we're also going to make a very strong invitation through Wake County Schools to have all of our students that take the Vietnam class, which I'll talk about a little bit later in the show, to come down and pay their respects and get some inside information. And all the teachers, of course, will be our special guests.
All right, now here's how you get tickets. It's very important that you remember this part. By the way, 919-518-9773. Each show will hold 300 people. That's how many seats we got. The tickets are free. We don't want anybody who say they'd like to see the show but couldn't afford a ticket. Tickets are free. So all you got to do is we'll have a website, Etchings in Stone, that you can go online and order tickets or contact North Carolina Vietnam Veterans Incorporated .org or ncvi.org and order how many tickets you want. But here's the important part. If you think your organization needs 10 tickets, then ask for 10 tickets. But make sure that all those tickets are used. I hate to turn someone away because you got 10 tickets and only 5 people showed up. So if you get 10 tickets, make sure you get 10 butts in those seats for the show.
Good.
Don't mind you having as many tickets as you can have, but make sure that those tickets are used so we don't have to turn anybody away. That's 900 tickets we're going to be giving out for the show. So make sure you get your tickets ordered so you can get it, because I know you do not want to miss it. This is a drama we did in Texas to rave reviews. We got all kinds of TV coverage and newspaper coverage. Over 2,000 people saw it while it was there, and we look forward to doing it here and doing it again. The museum has already said they'd like to do it again. The concept is you, the audience, are in the wall. And when I say the wall, you all know I'm talking about the National Vietnam Veterans Memorial in D.C. You're in the wall, and what you're doing is you're looking out, and you see people who are veterans who are coming to see their friends that are on the wall. You see children of veterans who come to see their parent on the wall, or the wife of a veteran. And it's quite a moving experience. And there's also going to be some interesting videos and music and so forth. So I know you don't want to miss it. But again, if you want tickets, just go ahead and order your tickets, but make sure you have people in those. If you give those tickets to 5 people and they say they can't go, have them to find 5 more people that can take their place, because we want to make sure that we get as many people in there as we can. Also, if you're a Vietnam vet and you're in this area, American Legion Post 116 in Fuquay, Johnson Pond Road, is having a Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day. That is Sunday the 22nd. They'll have free pig picking there, so come eat some dead pig with us. We will have the wall there. We'll be able to do some printouts and so forth. But if you're a Vietnam vet, come join us all for the American Legion Post 116's Welcome Home Vietnam Vets. Come tell a few lies with the rest of us. And you know how to tell Vietnam vets lying, don't you? His mouth's moving. Or he says, this ain't no, you know that's a good story.
Let me add one thing, Bill, okay? And we're talking about Etchings in Stone coming in March, as Bill gave you the dates. For a little preview of this, our playwright, Ron Harris, has put together a short video on etchingsinstone.org. If you go on that website and, of course, hit play button, you'll get a nice preview. It's really cool. We put it on 2 or 3 times, and we're looking forward to this a great deal. And I think it's going to be a showstopper. It's well done, and Ron is very talented. I can say this, but I'm not, because he's not here. He's out in Vegas.
There was some problems with the audio on this particular tape where it's taped, but if you stick with it, it gets adjusted, and it's well worth the time and so forth.
Oh yes, very much so.
And since we're talking about the playwright, as we call Ron, the idea man, he usually comes up with ideas for us to do. Then he steps out of the way so we can all get it done for him. But he has actually been working hard on this drama. But I just want to do something tonight that's kind of special that Ron has done. Super Bowl's coming up. By the way, or as some people call it, the Deflategate is coming up.
No.
So Ron wrote an article several years ago, an analogy about Vietnam and football. It kind of goes along with Andy Griffith's What It Was with Football. If you're too young to have ever seen that, you need to go find that tape and listen to Andy Griffith's story about football.
Well done.
But I'm going to read this, and I know it's not good to sit here and read, but I don't want to mess this up. This is an analogy of football in Vietnam. What was it like in Vietnam? Vietnam veterans are asked questions about their experience in Vietnam. Questions such as, why did you go to war? What was it like over there? How were you treated when you returned home? And why are you still struggling? Why can't you let the experience go? It's easy for Vietnam veterans to say, if you weren't there, you wouldn't understand. It's hard for veterans to answer the questions in a literary form that is easy to understand for those who did not experience Vietnam firsthand. In order to help better understand the Vietnam experience, please consider the following analogy. Consider that the administration and the school board of your high school required every student enrolled in the high school to be on the football team. The rules are firm. You must be on the football team. It doesn't matter that you do not want to be on the team, or that you have better things to do with your time, or that you do not like football. Of course, there are some exceptions, such as those students who are not physically fit to play football are exempt. Also, there are exemptions for those students who are smart and are going to college. Not to be forgotten exemption is for those students who are children of the administration and school board or other important citizens of the community. These students are exempt from playing football unless they want to play. Everyone must play. Your high school is a big 4A school. It has the most powerful high school football team in the state. Your school has a long history of winning. Your father and older brother were on state championship teams from your high school. Just before the first game of the season, the football coach calls in a team meeting. He says something like the following: "This is the best football team this school has ever put on the field. You are bigger, you're stronger, and faster than any other school in the state. You have the best equipment and training available. Your opponent in this game is a small, weak school, barely a 1A school. They are poorly equipped and enjoy little support from their fans. This should be an easy victory." Excuse me while I turn the page. Okay. However, there's always a however.
Always.
The school administration has instructed me that we must play this game a little different than we normally play. We will be playing with a different set of rules than our opponents. We will not be allowed to pass. All of our running plays must be up the middle. No running around the end.
No end runs.
Also, we will only be allowed to play between the hash marks on the field. This means that if the other team breaks to the outside of the hash marks, we can't pursue them.
Yep.
Now, team, let's go out there and play your hearts out for a tie. The game starts and your team is doing well despite the new rules. Your team is pushing the other team all over the field. Victory seems assured. Stop. Remember, you're playing for a tie.
You cannot win.
Your team fights hard for 9 yards and 3 downs. Most of your players are injured getting those 9 yards. Your coach calls timeout. The coach says the school board has sent word that your team has to give back those 9 yards back and start 4th and 10 on the original line of scrimmage. You need to remember, he says, we are playing for a tie this game. Near halftime, you notice a lot of your school's fans and fellow students are moving to the other team's side of the field. and they start to cheer for the other team. Even some of the school's administrators and school board members start to cheer for the other team. Remember, they are the ones who made you play football in the first place. As you limp off the field with an injury and covered in mud, your girlfriend yells to you from the stand, "Dear John, I don't like the way you've been treating that other poor team. By the way, I'm going to ride home with Jody from the band." The head cheerleader for your team, Jane, goes to the other side of the field and starts to cheer for the other team. She yells for you to quit playing for your team and to help the other team. Then you see her posing for pictures with the other team. During the game, some of your fellow players are knocked out of the bounds on the other team's side of the field. Instead of letting them come back into the game, the other team locks them into their locker room. The game finally ends in a tie. This is hard for you to understand. If you could have played by the real rules of football, you could have won. When the team gets back on the bus to return to your school, you ask the coach, where are your fellow teammates that have not returned from the other team's locker room? Your coach demands return of all his players by the other team. The other coach says that he has returned all of the players, and if our coach has a problem with that, he can talk to the school board. You are forced to return to your school without a full accounting of your fellow teammates. Having to return without your fellow teammates hurts the most of all. The school board tells you that there is nothing they or you can do about your missing teammates. You are told that the best thing you can do is forget about them. When you return to school, some of your fellow students and teachers say bad things about you, or worse, they ignore you. When you ask why, they tell you that it's because you tried to win the football game instead of going for a tie. No one will sit with you in the lunchroom. Your fellow students act as if you maybe go crazy and hurt them. The only friends you have that understands how you feel are your fellow teammates. The school board and the school administration and your fellow students have forgotten the football players that were left behind at the other team's field. The forgotten players' only hope is that you and your teammates do not forget them. This analogy may not hold up in all cases. Not every Vietnam veteran's experience were the same. But I think this analogy is close enough to the truth that it will help someone who is not a Vietnam veteran understand why some of us veterans feel so frustrated and angry, why we're unable to let Vietnam experience go. This comparison between Vietnam War and a game is strictly intentional. If you go back and listen to that again, I think you'll find that a lot of truth in Ron's story there. Fighting with different rules, hand tied behind your back, you can't go certain places.
And may I tell a side story on that?
Yes.
The copies of this analogy are available on request. You know how you get a hold of us. We've given you our website and phone numbers many times. But several years ago, I was in Texas Tech University in Lubbock, Texas, presenting lessons of Vietnam to about 250 teachers in Texas. And several people were there doing their thing. And we were the keynote group because we came down, they flew us down there to talk to the teachers. Where this one young teacher gets up and he says, I have a story for you about an analogy I want to read you between football and Vietnam. He started to read Ron's analogy, and our good friend Joe Harsh, who was with me, stood up in the audience and said, time out. And I mean time out now. Walked up to the stage, took it off him and said, that's plagiarism. This is Ron Harris's story. Vietnam on a Friday night. Nice job, Mr. Dixon. Well said.
It's rings true in so many ways.
Yes, it does.
That's a good segue to his girlfriend, Jane.
Yes, it is. Jane was a cheerleader in that analogy.
She was the head cheerleader. She
Yes,
went to
she
the other
was.
side.
Yeah, she left. Jane Fonda. Interesting.
Not many people are fond of.
Well,
Jane.
Hanoi Jane has made the news again recently, and usually our group defers to me because somehow they think I like Jane Fonda.
You do.
I do. I love Jane Fonda. I have a picture of Jane Fonda in my garage. Large picture. In fact, it's a poster. Her sitting beside an anti-aircraft gun in North Vietnam. And my grandson, Cooper, looked at it and said, Pappy, what are we doing with these push tacks? I said, we're going to hold up Jane with these. He said, where should I put my tack? I said, where do you think? Well, somewhere between her eyes there's a tack. And I said, thank you, Cooper, and the vets, thank you. Well, Jane Fonda has recently made the news again. And as I said before, some of you that know me know that I'm fairly outspoken, but I usually tell the truth. Jane Fonda has asked for our forgiveness. And I asked this question tonight on our show. She said she admits she made a huge, 3 huges, a huge mistake. And she would like the veterans community to forgive her. And she knows we cannot forget what she did. And she was talking to the man who has put Jane Fonda urinal stickers all over Wake County. Almost got arrested for it twice, and my students were assigned to put a urinal sticker in every restaurant in Wake County. And their parents called me and said, what are you doing? I said it was an assignment. Take-home assignment. Go to the bathroom and wallpaper Jane. Probably shouldn't have done that. But I'm not apologizing. But
By the way, Bob, let me interrupt just a second.
Okay.
If you want to get your own set of urinal stickers, when you go to D.C., to the wall, up by the Lincoln Memorial, there's a booth up there that's actually run by Rolling Thunder, and you can get your own stack of Jane Fonda urinal stickers and spread the good word about Jane all over the country.
Or you could call me and pick up Ron's analogy and a urinal sticker. I have them both. Now, as we were talking before, the question for you tonight, if you call in or just think about what Jane has asked, and this is a new article in the Stars and Stripes, it has her photograph on it. And as I said before, Jane was and is a very handsome woman and has championed many causes throughout this country. Teenage pregnancy, alcoholism, Indians' rights, American Indian, Native American. But she made her name dissing American soldiers in North Vietnam. And although I'm asking you to think about what I said, forgive and forget, they're tough words. Most of us have long memories, but we all made mistakes. She asked for the veterans community to forgive her. And all I asked for when I talked to her was an interview. And I was turned down.
Well, she recently had a movie came out that I cannot think of the name of the movie, but it was the one about the butler and the White House, and she actually played Ronald Reagan's wife,
Yes, she
Nancy Reagan. I cannot imagine how separate, different they could be.
That was.
But she told, and basically whenever she goes places or a new movie or whatever comes out, there's usually a group of Vietnam vets there to protest. And she told those Vietnam vets to get a life. Now, this is a woman who turns back around and says, I want you to forgive me, but by the way, go get a life. That it didn't work, kind of work together there.
Well, Jane has her own agenda.
Yes.
I call her Jane because we've met. And she would not give me an interview, but I certainly gave her a symbol that she'll remember for a long time. But that's the way it is. When you meet someone like this, you have to leave them with an impression. But Jane's back in the news, and I think she's probably pushing 60, Bill.
I would think she's definitely pushing 60 because we're a bit older than that, and she's close to our age. So.
I think she is.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's something I want you to think about tonight, because as we teach lessons of Vietnam, as we mentioned many times, we do not want to shy away from any controversial issues. Jane Fonda, Watergate, My Lai, all these things like this.
She's 77.
77.
She's 77 years young. And maybe it's about time we forgive her, or maybe it's about time she had a meeting and invited us.
If you're a Vietnam vet, do you think she should be forgiven? Let us know what you think. If you're not a Vietnam vet, but you know the story, what do you think? There's a lot of things that have been said that she did that she didn't do. But at the same time, she did enough to collaborate with the enemy and to cause more harm physically and mentally to our captured soldiers than anybody else. I mean, she's right in. You know, to me, she's much worse than Benedict Arnold. And I grew up thinking Benedict Arnold was a traitor, but Benedict Arnold basically paid for the revolution for a long time out of his own pocket, and then he kind of got ticked off and went over to the British. But she's worse. She's worse than anybody with Benedict Arnold, and he's whatever somebody looks at as a traitor, and she's done much worse than what he's done.
As you open the dialogue on Hanoi Jane or Jane Fonda, everyone that knows anything about movies and all that knows, you know, her famous name of her father, Henry Fonda, and her brother Peter Fonda, gave her a lot of access to microphones and screens and so forth. She's made a lot of movies, and as Bill mentioned, a lot of the things were fabricated that she did. But you'll never know exactly what she did or what she didn't do until she will come clean and exactly tell you what she did. Now, the one journalist that I've respected for years who called her on the carpet one day was Barbara Walters and said to her, Jane, America will never forgive you until you tell the truth. We know you're self-serving. We know you're a traitor. This is not me. It's Barbara Walters talking. Jane Fonda got red as a beet on the air, on TV, and Barbara said, when we come back, she'll be gone. And she was. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you very much.
919-518-9773. Computers 2K Voice. Okay. Now write that down so you'll have it next time.
You know, another thing, too, that one of the symposiums, or both the symposiums, and the play coming up, Etchington Stone will bring out, is you will meet a lot of Vietnam veterans and their families. You'll see them. Bill's mentioned he'll have his computer there, and the small wall will be there, an educational table, a lot of memorabilia. You will be able to step back in history a bit and talk to some of these men and women that went through this tough time in history. And maybe by contact with these people, you yourself can get rid of some of these myths about the Vietnam veterans and their families that Bill mentioned earlier, where there's a very high divorce rate. They're all on drugs. They couldn't hold a job. You will meet some of the most upstanding citizens you've ever met in your life. Wonderful men and women that have lived 40 or 50 years since Vietnam in a wonderful fashion and have served their communities and their schools just like they served their country 40 years ago. So one of our jobs has always been to take the myths, talk about them with the classroom, answer all the questions, and get rid of the myths about the Vietnam vets and the Vietnam War.
Well, you know, Bob, I came back and I was married and was still in the military and got out of the military and went on and got a job. And I stayed away from anything to do with Vietnam for a while because I fell into this, and I'm a Vietnam vet, but I fell into the thing in the news media that's showing Vietnam vets going crazy on drugs and shooting people, and they were hippies and dirty, and because whenever there was a group of people together, they'd always find a guy with American flag or a POW flag over his shoulder. Looks like he hadn't had a bath in 6 months, wearing a field jacket, and stuck a mic in his face, and all of a sudden he became a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah.
And I listened to that for a long time, and then I started going, and we had that booth at the fair, and I'd go there for, I think, about 3 years. I'd go stand off at a distance and look, and you know, those guys look halfway normal. And then I realized that they were more like I was than what the news media came out.
Much right, joint sentiment.
That's a lot of going back to the myths and so forth.
Well, you know, Bill, you think people want to know the truth. They want to get smarter and get more education. But do you recall years ago, you talk about the fair, when we first started this course in Wake County Schools, the trouble we had? Mm-hmm. I mean, I almost got fired. I went to the school board with a book and a check from Mr. Mike Hooks, of all people. And Mike, rest your soul, buddy. Mike bought the first set of books for the first course. And I went to the school board and I talked to Bill McNeil, and I said, Bill, he said, Bob Matthews, we have the same initials, BM. I said, right, don't take it any further. And we're talking, and I said, Bill, I would like permission to start a pilot course at Enlow High School to teach Vietnam to our seniors, the Vietnam story. And he asked me in a wonderful fashion, and I hope Bill is watching tonight because Bill's still active in the community. He said, why in the world would you want to do that? and the room got as quiet as you wouldn't believe. All the school board was there. It was a pretty crowded meeting. And I said, Bill, I just came back from the wall. 58,000 people are waiting for your answer. Nobody is telling their story. You pick up a history book like this. I had one with me at the meeting. I said, look in the index in the back, Bill. Look at the. You'll find vacuum cleaners. I'm embarrassed. All I want is a chance. I want one class, one time. I've got the money. I've got the course. I've got the vets behind me. Let us teach this story. The room got quiet again. Bill took a vote. Unanimous. One class at Enlow High School. One class in 1992. Now we have 1,200. It's a labor of love. It's lessons of Vietnam. We're adding layers every day. We thank you, and we continue to do this as long as we can. We'll always tell the truth. 58,375 men on the wall and women in Washington, D.C. We will always tell your story. Always.
You know, Bob, some interesting things about the Vietnam veterans. There were 2,709,918 Americans who served in Vietnam. Less than 850,000 are estimated to be alive today. We're dying out as fast as the Korean veterans or the World War II veterans. The youngest veteran today is average about 54 years old. And 1/3 of all U.S. vets, we're just 1/3 of the vets who served are Vietnam vets. For the last 14 years, we've been dying off fast. So if you're a Vietnam vet and you're still hanging around, feel lucky because the statistics aren't on your favor. And so hang in there, and I know the VA keeps promising they're going to get better.
They called me today, by the way.
Did they call you today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure they did. They did, yeah.
They wanted money.
They did. They've been very nice to me, but that's all.
Of the 2.6 million, 46% fought in combat or provided close support. The peak troops was in 1968, April 30th, 1968. I know because I was one of them. Was 543,482. Okay. Bob, you want to talk about someone that's dear to us, Nick Rowe?
I do.
And
you know, it's getting a little chilly outside now. It's getting time to read. Get up, put your feet up by the fire, put a log on. We often have a reading list and a movie list dealing with history in Vietnam. And one of our things we just did was the one right here. We Were Soldiers Once and Young. Excellent reading, Barnes & Noble. Great story, book and movie. Worth reading, probably 2 or 3 days. And when you read it, we can get the people that wrote it to talk to you if you want to. They're great guys.
the important thing about the book, it tells you the rest of the story that the movie didn't.
Right.
Joe Marm was left out of the movie, but Joe Marm is in the book. So the movie went one way, but the book will tell you the rest of the story and the nitty gritty of what the movie left out. So,
And a second book we highly recommend to our parents and to our students, whether it's NC State or Wake County Schools or wherever, is a book called 5 Years to Freedom by the great Nick Rowe. This is a man, of course, as Bill mentioned many times, that we went to his high school in Texas and put a show on there and dedicated the course to their population in his name. Now, a third book I brought tonight as part of our bits and pieces is a very nice book. It's a good read. It's considered one of the best books ever written about the Vietnam conflict. It's Tim O'Brien's book. It's called The Things They Carried. And it doesn't just mean rifles, rucksacks, sally packs, and canteens. It means things they carried here and things they carried in their heart and things they brought home. It is one of the best books. I must have read this book 15 times. I think I bought 100 copies of it and given it to almost every student I've taught. It should be on your bookshelf. Just a little recommendation from the old teacher here. If it gets chilly, you got to log on the fire, Now you got some reading material on Vietnam.
Again, Nick's story. We hear a lot about Hanoi Hilton. He probably would have liked to have seen Hanoi Hilton.
I'm sure he would have.
He was a lieutenant. Dan Pitzer was a sergeant. And both of those were members of our organization. And the name of a man by the name of Rocky Versace. Rocky was basically put on his knees and shot in the head shortly after they were captured. But the three of them were captured. The things that the communists did to these men are unbelievable. The mosquitoes, they would take their clothes off and stake them out by the river. And the mosquitoes were so bad that within just a few minutes they couldn't see out of the eyes because they'd been bit so many times. Their lips were swollen up, they couldn't eat. And they'd be stretched out like this for days. That book is a very motivational book because that man went through all of that, and so did Dan Pitzer, and survived and became a better man and a better citizen and a better patriot. And it's well worth the time to read it and realize that no matter how bad things get for you, if Nick Rowe and Dan Pitzer survived what they went through, there's nothing that you cannot overcome in your life.
And a side note, Dan Rowe's son, Alex Rowe, is a history teacher in Johnson County. He surfaced last year when we were doing the show, and he got a copy of the book, of course. He's become a fast friend of ours, of course. There's a lot to this Vietnam story, a lot to it. And we're trying to unpeel some layers. Been a very busy January, and will continue to be. We hope you go on the ride with us. It should be a lot of fun and a lot of knowledge for you to pick up on. We can't wait.
Well, all that snow they got in New York, they didn't get that snow, did they? All that snow they got in Boston got the snow.
Yes, they did.
Got plenty of time to get these books and sit down and read them. Stay warm by the fire, read the books. It'll warm your insides as well as your outside. But get the books, enjoy them. They're very special. Hopefully, the next show we'll have that tape, because if we don't, I'm going to make someone at the museum very upset, because I'm going to go get that tape one way or the other, because I want you to see the symposium so that you be ready to come back on February 16th to go to the symposium there at the museum. Again, there's only 300 seats, so I would not get there at 6 o'clock. I would get there maybe 5:30ish. Oh. It's not that long. You can have dinner afterwards or whatever.
Well, it could be on Lombardi time.
That's right.
If you're 5 minutes early, you're late.
Yeah, but be there, meet these men, bring you a piece of paper or whatever you want, have them autograph it for you, sign it to your name and so forth. That would be something you can put in a frame and save for a long time. As very special. Bill Schuete's helmet was in, now I never get this straight, Bill Schuete's helmet was in a museum in Moscow while he was a POW.
Yes, and it was found by a justice of peace from Arizona who was touring Moscow museums and saw the funny spelling of Bill's name. Because Bill's name, Schuete, you'd think would be S-H-U-T-Y. It's T-S-C-H-U-D-Y, like Tashuti. He looked at it and looked at it twice, wrote it down, went home and did some research, found Bill, wrote an article. Bill turns up in Apex. Small world. Now he's helping us.
Remember, yesterday was the anniversary of the freeing of the people at Auschwitz, and there goes another one.
Auschwitz.
And my son-in-law is from Poland and lives not too far from there, and I still can't say it. And also today was the anniversary of the Challenger explosion, which we lost the astronauts. So there's a lot of history going on out there. Again, thank you for tuning in on our show. Be sure to tune in next time, and we got the numbers, so write them down so you can remember them for next time. 919-518-9773, because we're looking forward to your call next time. You have a good one.
Thanks for listening, and stay warm. Good.
You are are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Your Healthy Pet with Gisela DiCarlo. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.